Translation. Is it possible to carry across meaning from one language to another? From the Latin translatio, meaning to carry across, translation seeks to carry across meaning between two different places. It's like in geometry. You have a start point and an end point, and translation relates to moving an object between those 2 points without disrupting that object at all. And that is the principle that underlies literary translation. It's the idea that you can move a text from one language to another and have exactly the same meaning. Except it might not be quite that simple. Swings and roundabouts. An English-speaking person can understand that phrase perfectly well, but how do we understand it? Think about what's actually embedded in that phrase. Swings and roundabouts. Well, they're two things that you find in the playground. They don't mean a lot by themselves. But we know that swings go up and down, and we know that roundabouts go round and round. And that's where the meaning of the phrase comes from. It doesn't matter how much you go round and round and how much you go up and down, you'll always end up where you started. The phrase relies on meaning that isn't in the words themselves. The phrase is a metaphor. Metaphor coming from the Greek metaphoros, from pherein, meaning to carry across, the same as the Latin, and from meta, meaning beyond. So metaphors carry meaning that is beyond words. How do you do that? Most translators agree that the best way to translate a metaphor is not to do it word for word, but to find an appropriate metaphor in the target language, that is the language that you are translating into. Because any language isn't just the words that people speak, it's a culture, it's a way of being and living. And surely every language will have metaphors for these universal human experiences that everybody knows and everyone understands. Perhaps not. Michael Hahn, in the epilogue of his book, The Translator as Writer, says that many languages make a distinction between emotional and intellectual activities, attaching themselves to the heart and the head respectively. The Chinese language, based off of Mandarin, does not do this. The emotional and intellectual are one and the same. So therefore, two people from two different cultures could understand the same text completely differently from one another. They might not understand it at all. So therefore, the translator needs to consider who they are writing for. Because if someone tries to translate a text from Chinese into English, they have to make a decision as to whether any activity is related to the mind or to the heart. They have a choice as to how the text will read. So how do you translate a text? It's not as easy as it looks anyway. And I know I'm probably going to stick with geometry. It's a lot easier, and it means I don't need to deal with literary criticism.